Welcome to Telesur. I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is from the South. We begin in Venezuela. President Nicolás Maduro has said the country is ready to receive more than 15,000 Venezuelans who were returning due to lockdowns in other countries to fight the COVID-19. He said during the weekend, 1,000 migrants have returned.
We are preparing to receive 15,000 Venezuelans migrants returning from Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru. There are videos and photos on social media about their situation. We will receive them all with love and all the preventive measures. They will all be tested immediately. They will take a quick test at the border. There are enough tests and we must check all of them. Those who are positive will be sent directly to the medical centers and hospitals. We have beds ready to receive them and take care of them. Those who are tested negative will go to hotels and other places reserved for the mandatory 14-day quarantine. And after that, we will do one more test. We are taking all the preventive measures in order to block any positive case from entering Venezuela.
Through a humanitarian channel established by the Venezuelan government at migration points, thousands of Venezuelans are expected to be repatriated from Colombia due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Colombia's foreign ministry reported that 600 Venezuelans have been able to return to their country. Many were evicted from their residences because they could not pay the rent. The quarantine decreed by the Colombian government prevents migrants from earning income to buy food and survive. The Venezuelan government has complied with all health protocols to prevent infections in the repatriation process.
We come scared because we do not know if we will catch the coronavirus.
From one moment to the next, they kick us out like some dogs. Some of them couldn't even collect their clothes, their personal things, and without money on the street. And this situation is quite difficult for us to go back to our country like nothing.
Venezuela's Vice President Adela Rodriguez on Sunday announced 4 new cases of COVID-19.
We have 159 cases, and 52 of them have recovered. That means a percentage of 33% of the people recover. That's a positive number. When we compare it with other countries, 34 people are in medical center, 31 are isolated at their homes. We insist that people who are infected and are at home to stay home, to use masks inside their homes, to designate one person to their care, and avoid contact with other members of their family. For cases where this cannot be applied, we have special protocols in place, and they can be in quarantine in a public health center.
Amidst the struggle against COVID-19 in Venezuela, President Maduro sent a letter to the people of the United States with a message of solidarity and a call for peace. The letter was read out by Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza.
We are not as different as they want to make us look with lies. We are people looking for a more just, free and compassionate society. Let's not allow the particular interests of a minority led by ambition separate us. We, as our leader Hugo Chavez once said, share the same dream. Martin Luther King's dream is also the dream of Venezuela and its revolutionary government.
Workers in Venezuela, private companies and the government are united in keeping production chains running in different parts of the country, especially in the field of food production.
Workers of the cereal company in the east of Caracas haven't halted production since the quarantine due to the COVID-19 began. They have made a call to the working class and other companies in the country to keep the production of essential goods running.
It is very important that the production of food continues, especially in this critical situation that we are in. Food production cannot stop.
We need to stay united. In the working sector, in the food production field, that we need to stay together, supporting each other, keeping production, getting our product in the streets, so that people, children and older adults continue to be fed.
Both the national and local authorities are supervising all companies in the country to support production and also to ensure that the preventative measures announced by President Maduro are adhered to.
The supply chain is undergoing a very big test, and it is at such moments that we see the importance of cooperation between the workers. private employers, suppliers, and the government. We can make a joint plan to overcome the difficult situation that we are going through.
We have been working with the workers on the production line, and we have found a working class committed to keeping working and a business sector committed to production.
Venezuela is entering its third week of quarantine, with social assistance plans in place to mitigate its impact on the people who have continued to abide by the measures put in place to stop the spread of the coronavirus.
Over the past few days, representatives of the Wayu people in Colombia have left their lands to protest over the quarantine imposed due to the COVID-19. While they use their rituals as a form of protection, they say a lack of drinking water and food has forced them to take to the streets in protest. Their farms have been affected by the unexpected quarantine imposed without any support from the government. As they live from farming, fishing, livestock breeding, and from selling handicrafts, the Wayu people say they would not be able to survive a quarantine without state support. Also in Colombia, an explosion in the department of Cundinamarca has killed 11 people. The blast at a coal mine in the municipality of Cucunuba left 4 others injured and poisoned by methane gas. Official sources state that the explosion was due to the accumulation of methane, causing the collapse of the mine and trapping miners inside. We're taking a short break now. Join us again in a minute. Welcome back. Let's turn to more news. Haiti on Sunday confirmed its first death due to the COVID-19. The victim is among the 21 cases of people infected in the country. According to the Ministry of Public Health, the case was a 55-year-old man who had hypertension and diabetes and was taken to a hospital. The government has closed the border with the Dominican Republic and suspended some international flights. 20 ventilators destined for Barbados have been seized by the United States. Health Minister Jeffrey Bostic said the ventilators were donated by a well-wisher to help the country handle COVID-19 cases, but were seized by the U.S. authorities before they could be exported to the Caribbean island nation. He, however, did not disclose the reasons for the seizure.
Just want to correct something that I would have said earlier in relation to the ventilators that were presented by Rihanna. In fact, 5 of those ventilators are due in next week. The order that I was referring to actually was not the Rihanna order, but another order for 20 ventilators that a philanthropist had consented to purchase for us. Those ventilators were actually stopped in the United States, the exportation of those 20 ventilators.
The Caribbean Development Bank will offer some $140 million in aid to the nations of the region to address the negative effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. According to the CARICOM Today website, the CDB approved the mentioned financial aid to be used by the member countries. The bank said the aid will be directed to policies intended to support economic growth, social welfare, and post-crisis recovery programs. The government of Argentina has given a detailed report on the COVID-19 outbreak in the country. Let's take a look.
In Argentina, there are 1,451 confirmed cases, with 98 new ones reported on Saturday. 56% of cases have affected men and 44% women, with an average age of 45 years old. Almost half of all cases are of people who traveled recently. 34% of cases are of people who were in close contact with a previously confirmed case, and 8% are due to community transmission. The rest of the numbers are still being investigated by experts.
Brazil has become the worst affected country in Latin America by COVID-19, as it reported 1,000 new infections in the past 24 hours. The health ministry said the nation now exceeds 10,000 cases of the pandemic. The management of this emergency by President Jair Bolsonaro has been strongly criticized, most recently by Brazil's Lawyers for Democracy Association. They filed a complaint against Bolsonaro at the International Criminal Court for crimes against humanity. In the United States, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo says the state's death toll from the COVID-19 outbreak has risen above 4,000 after 594 deaths were reported over the last 24 hours.
Number of deaths is up. That's the bad news. It's 44,159, and we pray for each and every one of them and their families, and that is up, and that is the worst news. But the number of deaths over the past few days has been dropping for the first time. What is the significance of that? It's too early to tell.
And New York Mayor Bill DeBlasio warned the city could run out of ventilators by next week due to an increase in the number of severe coronavirus cases.
So to get through next week, based on these updated projections, we believe we will need between 1,000 and 1,500 more ventilators for the period roughly Wednesday to Sunday. Again, those dynamics will change daily. Obviously, we are the epicenter of this crisis. So I would certainly appeal to both the federal and state government to help us get the ventilators we need rapidly.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has been admitted to a hospital 10 days after testing positive for COVID-19. A statement by his office said the admission was a precautionary move that had been taken on the advice of his doctor. Johnson, who is 55, has been quarantined in his Downing Street residence since being diagnosed on March 26.
Hi folks, quick update from me on the campaign against coronavirus. First of all, in my own case, although I'm feeling better and I've done my 7 days of isolation, alas, I still have one of the symptoms, a minor symptom of I still have a temperature, and so in accordance with government advice, I must continue my self-isolation until that symptom itself goes.
Meanwhile, British Health Secretary says people who are not complying with the measures put in place to stop the spread of the coronavirus are risking the lives of others.
This to the small minority of people who are breaking the rules or pushing the boundaries. You're risking your own life and the lives of others, and you're making it harder for us all. We're not planning any changes to those rules imminently, but we do absolutely require people to follow them. And we have had these questions about the boundaries of the rules and people pushing the boundaries. But as Jenny just set out, there's very clear reasons that we set the rules as they are, and we want people to follow those rules. And of course, there's now the police enforce against them.
Italy has registered its lowest day-to-day increase in deaths of patients with the new coronavirus in more than 2 weeks. The country's National Civil Protection Agency and the Coronavirus Special Commission reported that 525 deaths have been recorded in the last 24 hours. Nearly 16,000 people have so far died from the virus in the country.
Today we're recording 525 new deaths. Is the lowest number of deaths since 19 March. The total number of recovered patients is 21,815, with an increase of 819 more recovered than yesterday.
The curve has reached its plateau and now has begun to go down, and luckily also the number of deaths has started to go down, which is an extremely important data. But as we know, those are events that refer to 2 weeks ago, so this is a hint that the whole system is bringing a significant slowdown of infections.
During a Palm Sunday Mass in St. Peter's Basilica, celebrated without a congregation due to the coronavirus pandemic, Pope Francis dedicated his homily to love and service. For the first time in history, the Pope celebrated Palm Sunday Mass alone, in line with COVID-19 regulations limiting large gatherings. However, millions of people joined him via internet, radio and television.
The tragedy we are experiencing summons us to take seriously the things that are serious, and not to be caught up in those that matter less. To rediscover that life is of no use if not used to serve others, for life is measured by love. May we reach out to those who are suffering and those most in need. May we not be concerned about what we lack, but what good can we do for others.
One of the most affected countries by the COVID-19 pandemic, Spain, has reported its third consecutive daily decline in the number of people dying from the virus.
In addition, the total number of deaths is 2,418, with 674 deaths yesterday. And with respect to people discharged, the communities inform us a total of 38,018 people who have been discharged, which means around 29% of cases that the emergency centers have communicated to us have been discharged.
We have more stories coming up. Don't go away. Thank you for joining us again. Research on the coronavirus has revealed that people over 60 are more vulnerable to severe or fatal infections, and authorities in Mexico have taken steps to reduce this risk. More details in this report.
60 years old, Antonia Flores continues working. She does it in the midst of the epidemiological emergency declared by the presidency due to COVID-19. It is known that people her age are the most likely to get sick, but the lack of economic resources doesn't allow her to stay at home.
The ones that have the chance of surviving have money, but because we live day by day, we have to work.
In Mexico, 16.1 million people are considered elderly. Data of the National Institute of Statistics, Geography and Computing reveals that 6 out of 10 people over 65 years old live below the poverty line. Facing this situation and the health emergency, the government has decided to provide a universal pension that will benefit more than 8 million elderly people.
This will translate into immediate help for over 8 million elderly people.
In this way, the beneficiaries of the program will receive the equivalent of $219 to cope with coronavirus quarantine. The health authorities warn about the risks for this sector of the Mexican population.
We need to be very aware, not only about yourself, but your family, your community, the society as a whole, and then the government too.
The authorities have taken a number of measures to prevent the spread of the coronavirus in the country.
En especial las personas mayores de 60 años. No hay que temer.
They are the most vulnerable because a significant portion of them already have health problems that weaken their immune system against opportunistic infections such as the coronavirus that in regions like Europe has caused thousands of deaths. 95% of the victims are people over the age of 65.
Greek authorities on Sunday announced that a second migrant camp has been placed under lockdown restrictions after a 53-year-old Afghan migrant tested positive for the novel coronavirus. The man and his family reside in the Malakasa camp, which is located 45 kilometers north of the capital, Athens. Authorities last week placed a migrant camp in the country's northern region under lockdown after 23 asylum seekers tested positive for COVID-19. A team of 12 Chinese medical experts has arrived in the Philippines to help in the fight against COVID-19. The team was received in the capital, Manila, by the country's foreign minister. It is made up of experts in various areas, including respiratory health, intensive care, hospital infection control, nursing, integration of traditional Chinese and Western medicine, and microbiological testing. They also delivered medical supplies, including 30 ventilators, 5,000 protective suits, and 300,000 medical masks. South Africa's ruling party, the African National Congress, has hailed the government and the people of Cuba for their assistance that they are rendering in the fight against the coronavirus across the world. The party said the international solidarity that Havana has shown in the face of the pandemic has shamed those who continuously try to isolate and economically destroy the country. The ANC has also called on the U.S. government to lift all unilateral coercive measures against Cuba, Venezuela, Iran, and Palestine in order to enable the governments of these nations to protect their people from the coronavirus. A study by the African Union has revealed that more than 20 million people on the continent are at risk of losing their livelihoods due to the impact of the virus. The study, called Impact of the Coronavirus on the African Economy, said the continent's economy will shrink by more than 1% this year due to the pandemic, while governments could lose about 30% of their revenue. The continent's oil-dependent countries will be the worst affected, with Nigeria and Angola expected to lose more than $65 billion in income. Meanwhile, the number of COVID-19 cases in Africa has reached 8,500, with almost 400 deaths reported. South Africa has the highest number, currently at 1,585 cases, with 80 of them confirmed during the past 24 hours. At least 25 new deaths were reported in Algeria on Saturday, bringing the number of deaths to 130. South Sudan has also confirmed its first case of the disease.
The patient is a 20-year-old female who arrived in the country from Netherlands via Addis Ababa on the 28th February 2020. She has no history of underlying or pre-existing illness. She's currently in isolation.
And the former Libyan rebel leader Mahmoud Jibril has died from the COVID-19. He was 68 and he died in Cairo, where he was hospitalized for 2 weeks. He was the leader of the Alliance of National Forces Party, which overthrew former leader Muammar Gaddafi in 2011. And with encouraging news from Syria, where patients affected by COVID-19 continue to recover despite the difficult conditions in the country. The Ministry of Health announced the recovery of 2 of the 16 confirmed cases, but they also reported the death of 2 patients. Over the past decade, the nation has suffered a prolonged war and heavy unilateral coercive measures imposed by the United States. Despite this, it continues to make progress in the fight against the pandemic. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres says a number of developing countries have taken remarkable measures to contain the coronavirus pandemic despite lacking sufficient resources.
And I have to say that some of these developing countries have shown a remarkable capacity to respond. I was quite impressed to see, for instance, Nigeria, and Africa is of course a main concern of us all, Nigeria putting in place immediately in a stadium an hospital. And I saw difficulties in countries that are much more developed to do quickly the same. So there are efforts done by countries in the developing world that we should point, because they represent a very strong determination, but the resources available are, of course, insufficient.
And with that bit of great news, we end our news brief. But you can find these and more stories by checking our website, telesurenglish.net. And be sure to follow us on social media. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.